You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Now I'm here with Rashad Jones.
Hello.
Rashad, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
All right. Well, I'm 32. My birthday's actually coming up. My birthday's on Thanksgiving this year.
Happy early turkey of a birthday.
There it is. It only happens every 8 years, so I only got like a couple of these left, in my opinion. I'm a father. I'm a brother. I'm an uncle. I listen to. I've probably listened to just about every true crime podcast there is, big and small. I've been in
my Netflix documentaries, the murder ones. Yeah, that's usually what my browsing history goes, like comedy special. Then it's just straight up murder. Something insane where like the FBI would just be looking at it like, why the fuck is he watching this at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Dude, like in the 90s, they would run Forensic Files and what is it? I think it was called American Justice. They would run marathons for hours and hours on end, and like that was the only thing to watch. You know what I mean? So like you would end up watching 13 episodes of Forensic Files, and before you knew it, you were a true crime addict.
Look, I'm telling you, when you're a kid and you were way too lazy to get up and find the remote, either you couldn't find it or it was just across the room and that TV was on and you're watching like some show, either Adult Swim at 2 o'clock in the morning, or you're watching some dude selling CDs or some knives, like some dude just coming on the screen going, let me tell you about this big ass knife. For $49.99, you can buy this knife. And you're sitting there like, I want to change it, but I'm way too lazy to. And then you see true crime shit. And I'm like, whoa. So next thing you know, I'm watching a documentary on how 3 people got murdered and the killer, hid himself in a closet when the cops found it. I'm sitting there like 12 years old, like, man.
He's still out there.
Yeah, he's still in that closet.
But I work in the beverage industry, a predominantly big one, the red one, but I'm not going to say which one.
That's funny because I've had buddies that work for Coca-Cola. And and I was actually going to for a while. I was like, how easy it has to be just to like work at your own pace, like stock own stuff up. And he was like, yeah, but it's corporate. So it's like that whole feeling. I was like, I get it. Cause I used to work at Walmart and shit was so corporate. Like they didn't give a shit. They were like, oh, you didn't stack this right. Well, guess what? That's a strike. I'm like, what?
Yeah. It's that real. I mean, I've been there so long that it doesn't really affect me because I know how things are supposed to look and what they're looking for. So it's a different aesthetic.
Well, I think what's shitty about all jobs, I mean, like a lot of people don't want to say what they do because they think it's not worth anything. But if you look up your specific job title and anything, it's going to give you a really fucking good answer for what you're like. I don't do any of that shit. Like I work at a hotel during the day and it tells me I'm a clinical supervisor of industrial sanctity hospitality services. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not. I take out trash and take out dirty sheets and stuff. But it's like, that's why I tell people, like, because I title it usually what you do professionally, then like your podcast and the episode. And people are like, you just go and get good people. I'm like, no, these are average everyday people. I mean, you can let the people know. I shot you a straight up DM out of nowhere, slid in there and you were just like, what is this kid about? Like, what is his podcast about? And I'm just like, dude, it's conversation.
Dude, I listened to 2 episodes. Okay. Like I was like, let me get a feel.
Did you skip?
No, I didn't skip.
I'm about to say, if you skip, you will miss so much.
The chocolate one. And then I was looking for one that had something that was up my alley. And then I just gave up and I was like, all right, I'm going to just listen to the very last one he did. And it felt like 2 people talking to each other.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
there's no comfortability and no realness you get if you have a whole bunch of stuff that's structured, because then you feel like you have to base around that. Like I did a brief for a little while. I did a second podcast called Fill in the Blank, which was just like a spinoff of this where we just narrowed down topics. But in the thing, we're talking about like sliced bread and shit. Then eventually we're just going off about sandwiches like for a good half hour. Everyone's like, dude, have you ever had like a sandwich with melted cheese? And it just goes off from there. It's like, because we have this side to us that wants to be like real, that wants to get our interests out there, our opinions out there, and get our voice heard. But you can't do that if you're going on someone's, like, you're going on a game show and they're like, you have to act this way, you can't bid this number, and then you get the asshole that bids like $1 over you and wins the whole lot, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. The shit is nuts. I mean, like, I try and find people who on the outside look like someone they want to be on the inside, and talk to them about the whole being into true crime or being into the macabre or whatever. And I get more reaction out of those type of people than the people you see walking around dolled up and not being who they really are. They're just, you know, fake.
Yeah, well, I've talked to so many people just around the world, and I think everybody that comes to America, it's highly seen here. There's a lot of people are two-faced just on the way they act. It's because we give a default answer, but like with serial killers, all these types of things that like people like why there's such interesting shows on it. I kind of want to ask how you got interested in it and even started a podcast on it.
Mm. Well, it started with Forensic Files, episode 1, season 1, with what was her name? Helen. It was her first name's Helen. She's so German.
Wait, it's Helen Keller. Yeah, I remember. She was psychopath.
I would love to see an episode about Helen Keller because she was crazy.
Do you think Helen Keller would be a awesome like serial killer? Like I feel like a lot of her like disabilities would really get in the way, but that would be the most unbelievable one.
Given the time period, I feel like it would be over exaggerated a little bit, up until a certain point, because she was deaf, dumb, and blind pretty much.
It's funny because imagine her like trying to like just like she kills somebody. Like, did you kill somebody? And they have to like she has to read Braille, and she's just like, no. But she could. You wouldn't even know because I mean, honestly, when I see those things like little dots on like numbers on elevators and stuff, I put my finger up to it, and I'm like, I don't know what any of this shit means. This all just feels like bumps.
Nope. And like, fuck, what was her name? I'm about to look it up real quick. But it was the very first episode of Forensic Files where she was basically fed into a wood chipper. I'm sorry. And it was something that it was so far beyond the realm of understanding for someone who's 10 watching Forensic Files.
Ooh, wait. Okay. You're 10. Okay. I thought you were talking about she was 10 years old.
No, she wasn't 10. No.
Wait, she killed people or did she kill? She just got fed into a wood chipper.
She got fed into a wood chipper.
Did they find the killer?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Cool.
They did find the killer. It was her husband, obviously. Obviously, the husband does it.
Okay.
I feel like that's where that whole saying comes from, is the husband did it. It came from that.
That's a big controversy because I think a lot of what happened, like, I don't want to always go back to the Salem witch trials, but with the Salem witch trials, like they drowned a lot of women that were accused to be witches, and they turned out a lot of them weren't. But also at the same time, back in the day, you couldn't get divorced easily. Like it was seen as like an act against God. So I feel like a lot of guys were like, this bitch is just a witch. And then they drowned her. And then he was like, look at that. No divorce.
There would be guys that would literally just be like, I really don't like my wife anymore. She's a witch.
Set that bitch on fire.
Hella Crafts was her name. I'm sorry.
Now, okay. So what did her husband explain at all why she was murdered for something?
It was a divorce case, and she was about to take him for half of his shit, and there was nothing really that he could do about it because they were married. So he went and devised this whole plan into, he had to rent the wood chipper. He took her out to this highway and he basically fed her body through the wood chipper. And then when the investigators came out, there was, nothing left of her. So they were able to find like DNA evidence through, because it's 1996 when this happened. They were able to find DNA through the remains of her teeth.
Yeah, she's shredded everywhere. It's a lot of stuff. You could just
Yeah, there's a
start
lot of
picking off
stuff going
trees
around.
and shit.
Like I'm sure the landscapers probably would have found it before the investigators did, but
freaking Julio trying to trim the bushes. Like, I think I found an eyeball.
yeah, and it's definitely out there. And from there, it's just it kind of went towards court TV, and then American Justice, which is basically a bootleg court TV, and then from there, I was just like, hooked.
Well, that's actually really interesting because I'm into psychology, so I'm really fascinated with the way the human mind works. It's where I think I find a lot of the times, like where I watch true crime, I get fascinated with their kind of discovery on how they first of all did it. When I was a kid, I was watching in my government class, we'd watch like the Pearl Harbor movie on Pearl Harbor. Well, I remember we watched a true crime. We were actually on Forensic Files. There's a case in Ocean City, Maryland, where two tourist couple actually chopped up bodies of these people that they met at a bar and dropped their body parts around town. And I was watching it. I was like, well, I was half in, half out, and I'm like 14 years old looking at the TV. I'm like, holy shit, that's our local bar Secrets. I'm like, my parents worked there. And then they started going into this file like, then they didn't know what was next. And next thing you know, they're like showing like he started dispersing the bodies all around town. And I'm like, holy shit, this happened here. So I ended up like going on my skateboard one night to all the locations where they found the body parts. And I'm like, this happened here. This happened here. I'm like, shit. And this was only a couple of years ago. And it was a giant case. I had no idea it was just in my town.
Yeah. Like we don't have, like, I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and here there's a lot of cases in South Carolina. You got Susan Smith, you got the kid who shot up that church in Charleston. You have there's actually a recent case that got solved where a baby had left her, or a woman had left her baby, right down the street from my house. I try and keep up with the bodies that just keep turning up, because like for whatever reason, there's bodies that just turn up here and no one knows where they come from, because Greenville has like a sort of transient problem where people get bussed here and then they don't know where to go from here.
Mostly
Then,
Western places, at least
right.
Like Midwest and stuff. It's because you get a lot of people that try and leave like East Coast lifestyles. They try to go to the West Coast on like a musician dream or some type of aspiration. Like, I'm going to hitchhike my way to California and become a rock star, become a surfer. And the next thing you know, they don't make it there.
No,
and
it never
that's a really scary thought, because I mean, imagine you're a kid with full ambition and dreams of trying to chase down your passion. You hear all these stories about people that hitchhike all the way through. I didn't know this at the time, but like my car broke down recently. I had to walk 15 miles to my house, and it's at 2:00 in the morning. I'm wearing shorts and a black jacket like I'm wearing now, and I'm sitting there hitchhiking basically. Nobody's fucking picking me up. I don't look like a serial killer. So I had that in my head. I was like, this is like not a good time to do this. A lot of people don't do this. I have before. I picked up a kid. I picked up someone older than me. And just because I see them walking home, I'm like, you need a ride? And they're like, dude, it's 1:00 in the morning. Aren't you afraid I'm going to murder you? I'm like, there's no fucking way you're going to murder me before I murder you. And he's like, wait, what? I'm like,
serial killers being in the same car is ridiculous.
There's no way. And but I've always seen kind of like the bright aspect of people. Plus, I'm really good at reading people. And I'm on my way home, and a cop stops. He goes, "Hitchhiking's illegal, right?" I'm like, oh, is it because like serial killers or something? He goes, yeah, it's just more people are just going to pass you no matter your age, even if you're a little kid. I'm like, wow. And then he drove off and I was like, wait a minute, can you give me a fucking ride? And he's just going. I'm like, all right, well, I guess he's not allowed to do it either. But it does pop up a really good point. Like, with psychology, I started learning a lot about environmental influences, a lot of what a person can kind of dwell up through their lifetime, and eventually find this spark of insanity to just be dehumanized or desensitized to the way other people feel. Where you can get some people have their pain sensor switch. So actually, when they put their hand on a stove, instead of it being hot and hurting them, it actually feels good.
Right.
And I think a lot with serial killers, like there's one called the shoe killer. I forgot the exact name of the person, but he used to like he was really addicted to women's shoes. Like I think he either killed.
I think I remember something about that.
Yeah, I
Like
don't
he
remember.
collected women's shoes. Like he had like 100 pairs of women's shoes in his house or
Yeah,
something
he
like
would like kill women and take their shoes or something. And his documentary that was out, like it was his mom when he was a kid playing with women's shoes, yelling at him and beating him for doing so. And it built up probably this, fetish or this thing where he was like, it's a secret thing I do. Oh, and it became this thing that he wanted to do where he started actually killing women for and getting their shoes and keeping them. It's something you get when you're a kid, I feel like that hits you the wrong way or someone tells you not to do something even though you really like doing it, where you start to get suppressed and you turn into a serial killer.
Right. And I did it's called the McDonald's triad, I believe, where s- more often than not, serial killers develop these same three traits that aren't very sought after, which are starting fires for one. They're heavy arsonist type people. They like to see destruction. Another one is harming little animals. Um, just
That's how Halloween starts, the very first one, where Michael, he's a little kid, he's killing all the neighborhood pets and stuff.
right. And then the the one that I'm more privy to, where I feel like a lot of that trauma comes from, is they receive a head injury at a very early age. So that head injury may, you know, disassociate them from other people. Like it only takes so much to hurt a little kid.
Yeah.
And, especially when it's a head injury because their brain is still soft. The
Well,
brain
there's so much about the mind we don't understand. Actually, Roseanne Barr used to be like a straight A student, used to be like quiet, never joking, never any of that stuff. And we know her now as this famous actress, comedian, outlandish kind of person, funny vibe, everything. She was hit by a car at 16 years old, and it changed her personality from there. So what with Sam Kinison? The comedian, he's very outlandish, always screams, alcoholic, kind of. He died while back, but he was
right.
on stage yelling, "We're gonna drink, we're gonna drive, we're gonna do it all night." That all came after when he was a kid. His actual brother wrote a book on it called My Brother Sam, and he was hit by a car, and then his whole personality like that just switched. Like it's crazy to see, because you look at murder, you look at all these things, and they are only okay under certain circumstances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's ever okay, but like if you're fighting under the flag, if you're fighting for your country, if you're fighting for rights, it's okay. That's still murder, though.
Yeah. It's still
Um,
murder.
there's also just crimes, which is like there was a case where a football coach raped and actually, like, I can't remember if he killed or just severely molested this dude's kid, and he was getting away with it. And the dad, while the cops were handcuffing this guy in the airport, walking him out, the dad went up in point blank. It's all on footage. You can look it up, and shot this dude square in the face.
Jeez.
And you would see that and be like, that guy deserves it because of what he did, and he was getting off for it. Like he was laughing, like, I'm gonna get off for this.
Oh yeah, I've seen multiple documentaries, and I feel like I'd be one and the same. Where if something happened, close to my family, I would be the next episode on somebody's podcast or the next episode on Forensic Files, where I literally put together, some sort of plan to just go and do bodily harm to someone who's done bodily harm to mine. And I hate the way that sounds, but I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way.
It's a primal thing in us all, I think, a protective aspect in our human genetics. Like, I mean, when you were, not you specifically, but when we were
Right.
as people back in the day, like protecting our own, when anything would threaten your own family, your own blood, I'm pretty sure anybody, even now, we still have that. If anybody comes to your house with a gun trying to kill your whole family, you're damn right putting up arms to protect them, depending
Right.
on if you got into an argument before, like, hey, that last fucking bite of frosted mini wheats you didn't let me get. Well, this guy's coming in here and he's going to kill you. I'm just letting you know. Sorry, that's what happened. But I mean, besides like your first time kind of seeing this first serial killer, like your fascination with it, does it more link onto the solve of the case or the whole clues leading up to it?
And I've had my wife ask me the same question. Like I watch these types of cases in the middle of the night, like when we're trying to go to sleep, shit like that. And she's like, I can't go to sleep listening to this. It's all about death and murder and people getting killed. I'm like, no, you're missing the whole point. Because like, yeah, the first 15, 20 minutes of your documentaries, yeah, they're going to give you the nitty gritty. But like, I'm trying to figure out how the case was solved, what he left behind, who the investigators were, and in what time period was this case solved. Because like before 90, I just wrote in an episode, like DNA was not a big deal for a long time. Like DNA is very recent. So like any crime between like 1995 and backwards, they just had to do investigative work.
They
Like
actually had to sit there and look and like
they had to do their job because they didn't have anything. They didn't have anything scientific. So
like Sherlock Holmes stuff, like actually, moving shit around. Now someone just comes on scene, swabs something, and the next thing you know, they run it through a computer and they can get you way back to your grandparents. Like we know who your grandparents are.
pretty much. I mean, I'd imagine in 1980, if you kill somebody, they just left a bucket of semen somewhere. And they were like, what are we supposed to do with all this semen? Like,
Thank you. Somebody notices every fucking Criminal Minds, whatever show, all they do is they find semen. I'm like, are they just looking for it at that point? They just come in with a black light. Hold on, guys, I got this. All right, you guys are thinking this the wrong way. Let me just come in here. Look at all of this. It's like, did he come before he killed the person, or did he just doesn't wash his hands ever?
Like there's just semen everywhere, and there's nothing that they can do with it.
Imagine trying to find a serial killer in a strip club.
Oh,
That's
God.
why they don't care about strippers, cops. They're like, screw it. They don't care about them that much. They're like, oh, it's just another dead one. Because you know how hard it must be to try and find like the actual correspondent for the serial killer semen on their body?
Hard.
Difficult.
So,
Way more than you're
like,
getting paid.
The story, the way the narrator constructs it, because I mean he's getting paid, but he didn't write that story. Someone else wrote it, and I pay attention to who wrote the stories. I pay attention to how it was, laid out. It's almost the same thing as what does my wife like to watch? She likes to watch the fantastical shows, the shows that have absolutely no possibility of being possible. I get it. There's a following for it. People watch it. I get it. But I want to actually watch what did happen. And in a lot of those fantastical shows, people get killed off. Game of Thrones. How many people get killed off in that show?
I have never seen an episode.
I've never seen one episode.
All right, good. High five through the screen.
I will tell you that every single person in the show gets killed off, but there's no fact to it. These people aren't real. They don't exist. So like, I want to know something about what actually did happen.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna throw a scenario your way. All right.
All right.
Okay, so buckle in here. Purge. Good idea, bad idea.
It's a great idea.
Okay, now is that because it would probably reduce actually a lot of the bad shit like the movie actually says it does? Or do you think it would just become a bigger problem where people would want to be doing it more than one day a year?
I already feel like people do it more than one day a year. The purge to you, it to some people could be every day.
Yeah.
Like every day, if you're not that $100,000 Mercedes Benz driving 2-story home, suburban life, father, mother, whatever, every day you might wake up and it's the purge. You got to go out and you got to figure out how you're going to feed your family today.
Now,
And
hold on. Now, you do research a lot of this stuff, true crime stuff. So, do you actually have a planned out way that you would kill somebody, or a better way to do it than a lot? Because you have to have that thought. I watch a true crime documentary and I'll be watching. I'll be like, he shouldn't have done that. He should have did it this way. And I'm like,
right,
wait a minute, is that bad on me for thinking that? But I feel like no, every person thinks that. At one point, you look at somebody annoying or someone that really pisses you off in life, and you can just be like, you know, I could just snap your neck like that, but it goes away. You just don't hold on to it.
I
Don't give me that awkward silence. You're making me feel
no,
so bad
my
right
wife is
now.
convinced that I'm trying to kill her some type of way, but I keep trying to tell her I'm not because there's no way. I'm going to leave something. Blood is very messy. It like my dog cut her tail not 2 weeks ago, and I just noticed the way she was wagging it, how it left blood splatter on the walls, and I'm like, dude, there's no cleaning all of this up. There's no possible way you could get away with murder because you don't know which way. Like if you were to use a blunt object, there's no way to clean up all of the blood splatter. Like they have someone getting paid at least $50,000-$60,000 a year just to do the research on blood splatter analysis.
Yeah, it's like Mythbusters. They get the exact weapon, or they get a whole load of weapons, and they beat this mesh body in different angles to see
They
how
can
you could
tell
have
you what
recreated it.
you used to beat this body. I'm like, you weren't even there, bro.
You
Like,
used a fucking flip flop. How did you kill somebody with a flip flop? You're just like, it took a while. You wouldn't
it
stop
was a
moving.
steel toe flip flop.
It was one of them hard toes. Now, what weapon would you use if you were going to kill someone? Because I see that, like, where you see a lot of serial killers being male dominant, I see a lot of the female ones are long crafted out ones. Like they've
Oh
sat
yeah,
on it long and hard about it. They've sitting there like they plan it out for months. Like a guy just kind of does it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? He's just like, screw it. And like someone brought up a really good point that the easiest way to kill somebody feels like just dropping their body off in the ocean,
yeah.
like tied to something. Cause like, you know how hard it is for us to locate anything in the ocean. Like you ever drop something in the ocean, then try and find it later. It doesn't happen.
Mm. Luckily, I was able to find my car keys. I went to the beach last year, lost my keys in the ocean, and then they washed back up. But back to your point, if I had to choose a weapon, hmm, it would like naturally. I'd probably go with the popular crowd and say an ice pick because it melts.
Hang on. I was drinking a drink when you said, I love how you were like, I'm going to go with the natural crowd, say ice pick. I would have never thought in a million years to use an ice pick, but now I can see why, because them things are sharp.
Yeah, like I grew up in New Jersey. An ice pick, like they used to have advisories for people, in places where icicles would grow like stupid long and they would fall. And
Oh, wait, that's different from an ice pick, though, isn't it?
ice pick is an ice pick and an icicle are just about the same consistency. Like ice pick is really
Oh,
hard.
shit. I know what you're saying now. Like you could stab somebody in the head with an ice pick and then have it could look like an icicle fell in their head.
Exactly.
Oh my God. How confusing must that be? Isn't there one known as the ice pick killer?
I
I
think
feel like
so. I Oh God, what was his name? I should have did some more homework. I
I'm
forgot his name.
sorry. We're not meant to think in this podcast. We were just
Okay,
meant to
well,
talk.
yeah, like there was a guy that tried it, and he got away with like I want to say 30 plus
Mm.
before he was caught. Man, I think he just confessed.
How easy would it be to be an ice cream man and be a serial killer?
Hmm.
People are just coming to you.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Wait a minute. You could poison the ice cream.
Oh shit.
Yo, you think you're getting like a one of them SpongeBob popsicles where like the gumball eyes and it's all like fucked up, doesn't look anything like SpongeBob?
All antifreeze.
Oh, dude, I don't want to. Oh, we can't say that because people are going to listen and be like, "That's a great idea." It was actually like the Halloween poisoning candy was a myth, but then it became real this year because all the edibles that are out there, there's just a bunch of kids coming home stoned off their ass. I'm
Right.
like, that was a myth that our parents told us just to get candy out of our bags. Only one reported case of it ever. And I'm
Right.
like, it became real because a bunch of people started eating edibles.
My mom was the first one to tell me. She was like, "Hey, I need to go through your candy bag." And this is when I was like 8 or 9 years old. She didn't call. God. She told me, "Hey, I need to go through your candy to make sure that no one put anything in there that's not supposed to be in there." So naturally, we let her do it. And for some reason, our candy bags came out a little bit lighter than they were before.
All the
So
good shit gone. Reese's Pieces, Kit Kats. These Kit
all the
Kats
good
are
stuff is gone
dangerous.
now.
These,
So I just happened to ask her, like, my daughter's 5, and she just went trick or treating this year, and I was like, "So what was the hype about going through candy bags and people putting drugs in them?" And then my mom says, "Oh, baby, it's way too expensive for drug dealers to put drugs in your candy. I don't know what anybody would be thinking to put drugs in candy because
yeah, the only reported cases of it were like kids trying their Fun Dip, thinking it was Fun Dip, but it was like their uncle's heroin.
oh god,
That was one reported case, and then there was another one. The most legitimate one, which caused the big myth, was a dude that poisoned his own kid and then decided to poison other kids in the neighborhood to make it look like a major like candy poisoning, and he
right?
just wanted his kid's life insurance.
Oh god,
That's what I'm saying. Serial killers, like there's another aspect of it right there. Freaking life insurance policies. You take
yeah.
out like $1 million thing, and the next thing you know, you wait a couple weeks or something. Bam, she trips down the stairs. You don't know what happened. She's clumsy.
I never really believed the hype about the whole Halloween candy thing. I obviously I watched the news and they show pictures of people who have razor blades in their candy apples or some shit like that, and I'm like,
Well,
that kid's stupid.
kids did that on purpose too. They would bite the apple and they would take a razor blade and run to their parents. And it's called victim syndrome, which you see a lot with serial killers. A lot of people that like, oh, he did this too to me. With OJ, there was, I think, a couple reported people that said that OJ was threatening them too, even though they
Right.
were like, no, he wasn't. I mean, I do want to ask your opinion based on the OJ case. I don't know if did you watch the actual trial and all that shit too?
I watched the People versus OJ, which was subpar accurate. Then from there, I went down the rabbit hole of watching the highlights of the trial. Um, I didn't watch the actual trial as it was going down because during that time there was so much going on inside of the community of true crime. It was at 96, right?
Yeah.
96, you had John Bonet. You had people still talking about Susan Smith. You still had people talking about Darlene Routier, something like that. So OJ was, in my opinion, like, it wasn't so prevalent of a case because it didn't involve children like I was at the time.
Okay.
Like, it didn't have anything to do with who I was when that happened. Like, OJ was allegedly, the murder of 2 adults. I'm looking at the murders of 2 children. I was a child at the time, so that was more relevant to me.
Okay.
Um,
I get, I mean, I didn't watch it at all, so I don't know what the true facts behind the OJ case, but I'm pretty sure it's like a overwhelming kind of audience that says he did do it.
oh yeah,
But they're like, the glove didn't fit or something. But I'm
he's
like,
on medication when he tried that glove on, and that medication made his hands swell. Just putting that out there.
I think what's really crazy is people are like, he did it. He did all these things. I'm like, did he have kind of like a just crime in a way? I mean, maybe it was an overreaction, obviously, on his part, but people overreact all the time. I think that's all happens a lot of times too. There's a new Netflix special with Paul Rudd in it where he has a twin. It's basically cloned after him,
Right.
so he can leave two separate lives, and they're just fighting. Then eventually, he gets out of like the thing. They're hitting the shit out of each other, and the dude puts a pillow over the other guy's mouth.
Now that show, when I first saw it on Netflix, I thought the first thing I thought of was Us. Like
Okay,
I was like, this is Us, but a sitcom, pretty much,
yeah.
with Paul Rudd in it.
It is basically, it's crazy because like if you had a clone of yourself, you would want to go do all the things you haven't got. Especially like it shows Paul Rudd, like he's in his 40s, he's married, he's just bored at work. He feels like his life he didn't get to travel or do anything, and like what could have been. So then he gets a clone or something, but they're fighting, and he shoves a pillow over the dude's mouth and starts suffocating him, and then gets out of the moment, and he stops, looks at the thing, goes wake up, and starts hitting him. He goes oh shit, and then totally regrets it. I think that's what happens a lot of with people too. Like they get in the moment. I mean, how many times do you ever feel like you need to get out of your car because some dude cut you off in traffic and get out and start shouting at them? And next thing you know, you're face to face with somebody. I mean, it happens with conflict all the time. We see horror movies nowadays. They all back in the day seem to have a story to it, a built up serial killer or a built up folklore type thing. Now it's all on the basis of jump scares, but a lot of them is like, there obviously involves blood or murder, but it's crazy to see because a lot of like what we see with society now where people are like talking about, oh, there's another shooting or something. We live in a world that is people suppressed, and suppression never creates anything positive.
No, it really doesn't. And where I feel like what the media has done is they've literally shoved so much of this attention getting information, like the mass shootings, the husband did it, the whole synopsis of just grief has been given so much that people are dull to the personal reaction. Because like, okay, let's say for instance your grandmother's murdered. That's the worst thing that could ever happen to any family, is the matriarch of your family is murdered. But five or six houses down, they've watched several documentaries about how old people have just been dying. They don't care about your grandmother, but at your house, five houses up, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
What happens to your family too? It's a more personal experience. You see a murder on the television, you go, okay, just another murder. And I don't want to say it's becoming like a normal thing now, but it's like, it's always
Well, it is a
happened.
normal thing. People
Yeah,
die all the time.
it's happened throughout history. It's just now it has a bigger outlet with media sources being able to expose you with so much of the information now. Before, you didn't know too much about it. You have to look in your
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like your Netflixes and your Hulus, they're pumping this information out, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. It sends the message that we see and we hear your voices, regardless if you're here or not. The family gets their 15 seconds, and the show gets their, I don't know how many thousands of dollars that they make off of your family's grief. But in a way, as far as podcasting goes, it's an opportunity for me and my sister, who's also a co-host, to give our opinion on how it should be handled. and it's never the right. And no one can tell you how you should react when someone passes away in your family or is murdered in your family. No one can tell you like, hey, you shouldn't behave like this or you shouldn't behave like that. I just feel like there's a personal responsibility that you have to not let those stories go so far.
Do you
know what I mean?
feel like you and your sister bring a different perspective in? Like she probably thinks a little bit differently than you, or do you find that you guys kind of think on the same basis or at least correlate with each other's ideas?
Me and like she like I was the one that got her basically watching true crime documentaries and stuff like that. And it started really early with me and her that she was at the very early stages, she was more in line with the killer. Surprisingly, she was like, well, he had all the right in the world. Like, she cheated on him. Why couldn't he kill her? And I'm like, it's illegal.
Yeah.
Hello.
But there's a lot of dumb laws out there. Like I said before, it's where we talk about just crimes. I don't want to ever say murder is okay, but in certain scenarios, it does play a different role, at least. I don't want to, that's not a pro. It's not me saying anything that murder should happen, but
No.
yeah, there are definitely some cases where you're like, that guy fucking killed a bunch of kids and he's just going to jail. Like at that point, if someone came up and killed the guy or something happened, suicide, whatever, like some Epstein situation, hashtag conspiracy, whatever. It's crazy to think because the government kills people all the time. Now, a lot of people always blame the government for shit. It's people that run the government. But you have this title, this thing, a lot of people bring up cop shootings, all these types of stuff. You got to see it from both sides of the perspective. Through my podcasting, I've been nothing but open-minded to everyone's beliefs and everyone's ideas because I believe we all have our own kind of walk that's got us to our process of thinking. So with cops, I've talked to both sides of the spectrum, people that have lost people and people that are still cops. And it comes from, there's like same thing with getting a gun. There's a weight in a criminal record track just before you can get a gun. Like, you can't have any, preceding stuff leading up to it. You can't have any cases or anything that you've been involved with where it would stop you from getting a gun, but no one ever gives a mental health check.
Right.
That's probably one of the most dangerous things, but also in a courtroom scenario, most of the time, when it's a murder case, they bring in a psychologist first. They have a person sit in there and talk to them, mostly because anytime you are legally considered insane, you have to be tested for that. Like if you plead insanity, they have to talk to you and they have to sit there and see if you feel any remorse. There's actually a guy, this one dude, this comedian, Tom Segura, actually brought up this story on a podcast with Joe Rogan, talking about how he had this friend that went to jail for like 20 something years and then got out because he actually was innocent. And he was telling them, I'm innocent. I did not kill my own mother. And they thought it was a money thing. And this guy literally, this one cop full on went to get him arrested, everything, wanted that, see that guy locked up forever, didn't give a shit what was true or not. And this dude's been locked away. So every time he would go on, like, where you would see your good behavior, your parole or whatever, you get rolled up for parole. The cop would come up and be like, no, he's still a bad guy, still a bad guy. He's like, I didn't do it. So they were like, he's obviously insane because he's not feeling remorse for killing his mother, but he was innocent. He didn't kill his mom. You're not going to feel remorse if you didn't do it. You know what I mean? So then his parole, every time he'd come up, the cop would be like, nope, he's a bad guy, send him away. So he kept getting pushed down. Then one time he did it. He's like, I found new evidence. And the judge is like, what do you mean you found new evidence? He's like, I went back to the guy's house because he killed his mom over an insurance thing. I found the money that was stuck under the floorboards. So he did do it. And they're like, really? And he's like, yeah. The cop's like, yeah, he's been in there 15 years. Keep his ass locked up. So they went and talked to the people that bought the house after the guy was arrested and then sent to prison. And they're like, no cop came to our door and searched our house. No cop did any of that stuff. They found out the cop was lying and that guy's been falsely imprisoned for almost 20 something years.
dude. I really like, and that's something else that I have to keep in mind with a lot of the cases that we cover. Like, not to say that I've covered tens or twenties of cases. Well, like we're only on episode 6. Okay, we're a very modest podcast right now, but like I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of cases covered, and I'm like, what if he didn't do it though? Like there's always that question of like, did they want they just needed a person to blame for this crime, and you know, being just a person, not a black person, not a any kind of discriminatory word, but just being a person involved in a situation, could I ever just be a suspect? Like, let something happen with someone close to me. Would the authorities think that I did it because they needed a person?
That's what really sucks, because you can get a giant. Some person could just have a better lawyer than you. Next thing you know, you're doing prison for something you didn't do.
Exactly.
And if you're like the common person that gets arrested for a case or something, or a serious crime, you get what, a default lawyer? You get like the one the court appoints to you.
Yeah, the court-appointed $50 lawyer.
Yeah, who doesn't really give a shit what happens. He's getting paid whether you win or like lose. So you're not really getting anything kind of for yourself. And it's really hard for a judge to make an opinion, especially when the other side's giving so much evidence on why you did do it. And he's just looking at you trying to make his best of judgment. And it really scares me a little bit, because jury duty. Now, have you ever been called up for jury duty?
No.
Okay, there's a lot of people that have to do jury duty in a very serious crime case, like weapons, gang-related stuff, like murders and all this stuff.
I know about jury duty. I've just never been called for reasons.
Well, for jury duty, that shit's open. That shit, people can just come up off the street and be like, I'm going to view this case. That whole thing. They can just walk in and sit there and watch.
No, we have that here. Like, if you just felt like it, you can go downtown right now and just hang out.
Yeah, and if you're part of the jury, when they say your name or jury number 1, jury whatever, they can look up in the newsletter article of the case and be like, who the fuck's on the jury? And your name is listed in there. You know what else is listed in there? All your personal records and shit. So they can find your address. They can find all that. You don't look right now. I can look up Rashad Jones if I had enough information of you. I could find where you live if I go deep dive searching for it, and I could find all your shit on public open access. There's on the criminal database, you can look up all, if you have any warrants for you can look up all that shit. You're telling me if you're dealing with a gang kind of related incident and you're on the jury for this guy that obviously killed 3 people, and you're sitting there knowing he's guilty, he is guilty, he fucking even admits it, and you look in the crowd, see a couple of his gang members in there, and you realize all your public shit is out there so they can come to your fucking house.
That's what happened with the
El Chapo?
Yeah.
That's why nobody wanted to fucking say shit. They were like, he's innocent. Like, what are you talking about? He's guilty. He's guilty. Just say, you told me in the back room he was guilty. He's like, bro, I don't know what you're talking about. Did I say it right, number 4? Yo, you with the scary arm tattoo. Did I say it exactly like you told me to say it? That he's not that he's not guilty. Not guilty. Yeah, he's definitely not guilty.
Yeah.
That's fucking insane how that they would even let that happen and give your information out. They should have like a black screen in front of your face.
Yeah. Like the public record thing is scary. Like, I'll be honest. I know people who have the cleanest rap sheet. I know people who have the dirtiest rap sheet. And like, for whatever reason, it feels like sometimes it doesn't matter. And then sometimes it's the absolute worst thing that could ever happen to you, especially people who have rap sheets going back as far as the 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that doesn't mean they can't change either. I think, this is a good thing I just thought of was, if you examine people on their criminal records and not seeing the change that might have happened or might have occurred while they've done served time or something, there's also a thing you can do. Like, imagine if you started looking at everyday folks and just decided to put in their search history. Like, let me look at all your fucking search history, just like I would look at all the criminal records of somebody and see if you're a bad person. I guarantee if you look up my search history, you're going to think so many fucking things. Like, why is he on Amazon at 2:00 in the morning ordering a bidet for his toilet? I'm like, because I fucking need it. It's not going to show me in the best aspect. So I'm like, if you just pulled up your search history,
it'd be filthy.
then everybody would be going to jail because your search history is never clean. There's no person that ever logs into their computer. I mean, even with incognito mode, you're still searching up something evil. You know, it's like Bill Burr has a joke. Like, imagine watching porn is like your full 3D projection and little pixels float off every time you watch porn to where you're older and it's just your couple little orbs left.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
oh no.
There's all these things that chalk up into what we as a society create as a good person. I'm like, when you watch these true documentaries and all these crime stuff, you try and narrow it down for many aspects. I mean, explain to me a little bit like one of your most, I guess, common things you look at when you're dealing with a crime case or you're dealing with something for your podcast episode.
What I look for as far as like a crime of interest, right now we're on our first season. We're going to do just cases that have just I've gotten so involved with this case. I've done the research without having a podcast. Like, I've just done active research towards it.
So stuff more people have information on, like a common, like OJ case would be pretty common. Like, if you put an episode out on OJ, a lot of people are like, holy shit, like, I've read into this case. I actually watched some of the stuff. I want to listen to this.
Right. I would, God, if we're going to go OJ, I'm going to dive in to what would make OJ want to kill his wife.
Dude, just ask him on Twitter. He is active as hell on Instagram, active as hell on social media. He does a sports thing now. He's always talking about the sports game, like, oh, missed that tackle. If he would have went left, I'm like, fucking A, man. Like, you could easily just.
But the thing about OJ is he is so media trained, though. Like, he's been in the media since college.
Psychedelics.
Oh, God.
Give him psychedelics. You will know everything you will ever want to know about OJ.
Oh, yeah. I believe.
If I had a question for OJ, I wouldn't ask him if he murdered those people, to be honest with you. I'd ask how it was making the Naked Gun movies, because I had no idea.
Those are the funniest movies ever.
Nobody's seen them either. Every time I bring up Naked Gun, everyone's like, what's that? I'm like, you don't know who Officer Frank Drebin is?
Leslie Nielsen? OJ? Like,
this is Scary Movie before Scary Movie was a thing.
Yes, it is.
There's a scene where, like, we need to have protected sex. Did you bring a condom? Oh, yes, I did. They're wearing full body condom suits for just fish flopping on top of each other. Like, that is the best crime show.
I think 33 and a half is my favorite movie as far as like spoof movies go.
God, dude, Leslie Nielsen, man. Has it?
Oh, he is a legend as far as like if true crime had a comedy, he goes at the top.
If they had any actual true crime documentaries and just brought Leslie Nielsen in there, you'd watch the whole damn thing.
I would watch every single episode religiously. If they made me pay for it, put it on Disney Plus. I'm paying for it now.
Screw. If Disney Plus was going to kill people, how would they do it?
With Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, with Leslie Nielsen. It's like the Morgan Freeman, basically. That's what Leslie Nielsen is.
I feel like where there was a fall was when they put Danny Glover as a narrator on Cold Crime Case. Cold Crime? Is it? Yeah. Cold Cases. I think that's what it is.
Why? How many true crime shows are there out there? There's a lot.
There's too many.
I always see when I think of true crime, I always think of the guy that comes up with sunglasses at night and then sees like a jogger dead in the woods and just bends down.
Joggers are the most popular people to find dead bodies. Like, if you ever want to find a dead body, pick up a jogging habit.
Yeah, like, it's really crazy. Like, why are you jogging at 12 at night? But then I can't argue with that because I'll work out at 2:00 in the morning sometimes. So I get it.
I go to work at 3:00 in the morning and I see people running. And I'm like, what are y'all running from? But they're just running for fun. Like,
there is a scare though, because I remember I used to come home from the gym at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So like you getting pulled over by cops going like, where are you coming from? Usually it's either you're meeting drunk people that are just driving on the road. Like, I can drive. I'm good. I'm good. Well, there was this kid like that I saw and he's wearing all black clothing and I barely missed him. I mean, barely. I was like, holy shit. Because he was around a corner wearing nothing on his bike, just all black. I'm like, holy shit. I just missed him. I was like, damn, that kid could have got killed. I go home. Next day, I wake up, regular day, everything started. I swear to God, dude, it wasn't only a couple days later. And fucking, he's in the article in our newspaper. He got hit by a car. And it was like
Obviously.
they found the body at 5:03 in the morning. I got home at like 3 in the morning. So I probably saw him at like 2:30 something. Like
Jeez.
I'm being dead serious. Like I was like, damn, I knew, like I told my mom, I was like, that kid, that could have been me that hit that kid. And she was like, what? And I was like, he was wearing all black. Like I actually rolled down my window and was like, hey man, like you're wearing all black. I can't see you. And he just kept on going, didn't even stop, didn't do anything, didn't even recognize me saying anything, probably had headphones in. I'm like, you know how fucking dangerous that shit is? I started thinking about that when I was taking that 15-mile fucking jog/slow walk all the way back to my house, man. Yeah, I said jog/slow walk. I would jog. And then like after like 5 minutes of jogging, I'd be like, holy shit. And then I just start actually slow-mo walking, seeing if I tried to like funny hitchhike, if someone would actually pick it up.
No,
I looked more insane probably than an actual like normal hitchhiker. So it was a bad idea.
I totally get it because I told my mother-in-law the same thing about this deer she hit the other day. She hit a deer, and it was the same day I saw the same deer on the same road that she hit. And I was like, was it at this intersection where like there's a population of deer that just hang out there? She was like, yeah, and I was like, well, you should have slowed down. Like it's a,
Yeah. It's weird because a buddy of mine brought it up. He's like, dude, he goes, you basically murdered that guy. I was like, what do you mean I murdered somebody? He was like, no. You could have easily called the cops or did something to avoid that kid's death, but you never did anything. And I was like, I didn't hit him with my car. Someone else did. He goes, yeah,
that's
but you
false
didn't.
victim blaming.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, but you see a lot of those in court cases. People do shit like that.
You do, and there's a case that I'm looking into right now where they're trying to convict basically a woman or man. She hasn't gentrifically identified herself as a man or a woman, but they're basically trying to blame this person of a crime that she's trying to plead defense for, or like she's trying to plead not guilty because she was trying to defend herself. The same thing with a car, with a person. Like if a person jumps in front of your car and you hit them, is that your fault? So
There's a thing recently on social media. It was a bus driver throwing a child off a school bus, like a little toddler.
I saw something about that.
And a bunch of people were freaking out, like about to beat up the bus driver. Like, you can't just throw a kid like that. And the bus driver just gets on the bus and starts going away. And all these people are picking up this kid. It's a midget. It's a small person dressed up as a child that was riding a kid's school bus.
Oh God.
And everyone immediately dropped him and started backing away. Like, you're not a fucking kid. And you saw all these people with like regret and shame on their face for yelling at this bus driver who was doing the right thing.
Have you heard about that case where this midget was like trying to pretend to be like an adoption child, and in reality, she's like a 36-year-old woman?
Oh, okay. You got to explain that one a little bit to me.
Okay, so like this is a Facebook post that someone had shared to me, and I was like, are you kidding me? But like, there's this midget. She's like from like Eastern Europe somewhere or whatever, and she allegedly was adopted as like a 5 or 6-year-old child, and then come to find out like she's not 5 or 6, she's 36, and she's been like hustling this family for money, and like the family just took her somewhere and just dropped her ass off and left.
Holy shit.
It's not a true crime case. It's definitely a case that like I'll probably just like talk about one day, but like that like I think Dr. Phil talked to her. You know how Dr. Phil likes to jump in whenever. And
Yeah, you got to do your Dr. Phil impression. You can't just leave me hanging on Dr. Phil. Now, you know what you did there,
you look 36.
but really, you might be a redneck.
So like this woman or girl, I'm not sure because I don't know how I feel about the looking at her. She looks 36 as a midget. I don't
Okay.
know what midgets look like. I've only seen like 2 midgets in my life. So like how can I judge this one midget? Or well, I don't know what they like to be called. Small person?
Small people.
Small people. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know how to judge these small people based on the 2 small people I've ever seen in my life. So when the situation calls for, was it right to leave her somewhere? No, that's not right.
I think when you have to deal with human abnormalities, whether it comes to the brain or whether it comes to body size, whether it comes to gender, when it comes to anything, this makes it extremely difficult just having a judge's position on anything. Like you want to talk about getting all the facts behind a case. These people deal with so many cases per year that they really can't give a very clear and clinical answer. I always brought up the opinion that maybe judges should only have to do about 10 or 12 cases per year. Just do full on a couple months of actual hardcore research onto both perspectives of the side. Because a lot of time they're just getting fed information. And if one dude comes across as like, we all know people that are good communicators, good smooth talkers, and people that aren't very good at expressing themselves or people that aren't good at talking in general. You got a Elon Musk who's not very good at expressing his thoughts, just kind of seems a little bit awkward or something. And then you're dealing with some dude that's like a car salesman. Like, let me tell you something. I could sell this knife and you would kill your mom with it. Like, I would buy that knife. That is a nice knife. Like it comes onto that perspective that they can get swayed in so many ways. You got to bring that up in your podcast. I feel like that is a major kind of overlook that a lot of people don't understand. Like,
Right. I definitely will consider that.
I mean,
I never thought about that.
When you break down each kind of topic or serial killer thing that you guys do, you talk about, you like kind of looking at the whole leading up and how it was uncovered kind of deal. You like that whole part, but most people, is true, they are just in tune with the serial killer side. Like, how did the person get murdered? But you're more like, how did all that evidence get founded out? That's where you start to see some shit. That's where you start to see, like, now, did he actually find something, or did he make a justification or a claim that he found something based on probably nobody was really going to look into it? If you look up the statistical facts of arson fires, they narrow that shit down to a fucking match. They're like, it was this match. How do you know it was that match? We just know. Nobody says anything else. They just go, okay, I'm going to trust the fireman.
It was that match. It came from the Quick Stop up the street. Yeah, we got it.
He's got the freaking strip club matchbook right there. It came from this one. He definitely wasn't smoking a cigarette or something with a match.
And like with a lot of cases that I cover, or a lot of cases that I have covered so far, it's like the prosecution presents this evidence. They're like, okay, so for example, with my most recent case, the Lacey Peterson case with Scott and Lacey Peterson, they're like, well, he's got these anchors. He's got dried spots with anchors that he made, and the anchors aren't here. Where are they? He's got her hair and not her hair, but a hair that is consistent with Lacey's hair in a set of pliers in the warehouse. And 5 anchors are missing, and the baby, and she's missing, and she's pregnant. That goes so much into what I said before, where the people as a whole, as because Scott Peterson was the most hated person ever as far as the media is concerned. Like, I don't think OJ topped Scott Peterson.
And I have no idea who Scott Peterson is.
Okay, well,
Sounds like a golfer.
Oh, he was a golfer.
Are
He
you
was,
serious?
yes, he was.
Fucking
He was a
bullseye.
fucking golfer. But he was a really good golfer too. But
Did he just miss a putt and fucking ended up wanting to kill somebody? Now wait, I just rationalized him because I played freaking putt and I missed a putt and I have Happy Gilmore'd it where I've chucked a golf club across the whole entire thing. You get a free game and I missed it because it bounced in and I'm pretty sure it was specifically meant to bounce out when it goes in.
They rig those things.
Yeah, I don't like living in a system that's rigged. That's why I don't function in society.
So like going as a segue into your rig thing, the system itself, it just might be rigged, to be honest with you, because it's according to what the media wants, and the media wants someone to blame for these things. I'm not going to. I can't sit here and say Scott Peterson is guilty. Scott Peterson is definitely a terrible fucking person.
Well, he's guilty in the eyes of the open public, I would say.
Exactly. He was found guilty of not capital murder. Was it capital murder? It might have been capital murder, and under special circumstances because of the fact that his wife was pregnant and that baby died too. But
okay, so he killed his wife with a baby inside. So basically, did he killed a life and a half.
Oh, he's on death row right now.
Yeah.
But what can I say that he'll ever see the chair? No, he probably won't. Or lethal injection? No, he probably won't. More than likely not, because there was no murder weapon, there was no forensic evidence, there was no if there was anything, there was probable cause. He had everything to do with probably killing his wife, and that's all they got him on. But he was a terrible person, and that's why I hate him. But let's skip that. If it comes to a point where, like I said before, if I'm in a case where I'm going to be tried knowing damn well I had nothing to do with the murder of anyone in my family or, my extended family, and I'm the number one suspect, God, it bothers me how the system's so corrupt.
Well, like you said, the system's set up to where we need somebody to blame. That's
Right.
True. It's set up in many ways. It's set up to basically pump out people that are that work a 9-to-5 life. Okay. For you doing your job, you can't get up at 9 a.m. to start your shit. You got to get up at 3 a.m. because you got to stock these drinks before someone gets in there. I know that whole route. Trust me, I did research on it thinking I wanted to do that at a point. Still might want to. But when it comes to the corporate system, the government, all these things, they look for someone to blame because there can't just be nobody to blame. There just can't be nobody that gets off over something as serious as a murder. Someone's got to get locked away. It doesn't matter if it was little Susie across the street just riding her bike or little Jimmy playing with a butterfly net. There always has to be somebody that has to get paid, because when someone loses a loved one, you're looking for someone to
Someone's
blame.
got to go.
Yeah, someone's getting locked up or someone's getting the electric chair. That's why, that movie Green Mile, although around the time period that takes place.
I love that movie.
Seeing live action, like death row shit, people watching someone die, you are there like, this motherfucker's going to burn for, for what he did to my family. And then you watch it happen. You watch a life literally get lost in front of you. And afterwards, you don't feel as hyped as you did before. You're like, holy shit. Like,
what made me feel different about it was actually a Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you watch Black Mirror.
Fuck, I gotta watch it because every time I do a podcast, everyone's like, "You watch Black Mirror?" I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" Like, exactly what you said was like Black Mirror. I was like, "Well, I guess I gotta take a look into some dude that's writing stories about everything I'm thinking of."
Well, I mean, it's a very good, It's a very good show. Like I didn't like it either. My wife put me onto it, and I was like, "This is stupid." But like after watching, I forgot what episode it was. It was probably the episode it was like the Facebook episode where the girl had to get a certain amount of likes or something to get to a wedding or something like that. I can't remember what it's specifically about, but there was an episode where, oh God, okay, so this girl, like this guy kept this girl's father's spirit in a cage, and she basically, or he basically, electrocuted him for sale. Like, if you wanted to come and electrocute him, you could, and he couldn't die, basically. But he was innocent of the crime that he committed. So for, however many years, he was punished over and over again for a crime he didn't commit. The fucking genius behind that episode.
Groundhog Day with a ghost.
Basically.
Holy
Pretty
shit.
much.
Imagine that. Imagine you could be. Does that make Ghostbusters murderers if they're killing ghosts or capturing them? They're technically like owning something.
Okay, so is that hell? Wouldn't that be hell?
Isn't purgatory basically like hell? There's no heaven or hell. It's just like you're left in emptiness.
It's the Matrix.
We're all in the Matrix. We're all in the Matrix. At one point, I'm pretty sure we're going to wake up. Everything. There's like random glitches in the world. You'll be walking and then you'll see you get deja vu. I was like, is that just the system messing up? Like our brains are like fucking.
Oh, dude, I go through it all the time. I go through it so much.
Well,
like, I'm pretty sure we're living in the Matrix.
When you're watching documentaries of murder at 1:00 in the morning, this shit pops into your head, people. I don't know what else to tell you. Me and him understand it. You guys don't. We're sorry.
I'm pretty sure we're living in the Matrix.
Now, okay, so this brings up, you ever heard of the color Vanta Black?
Vanta Black.
Well, MIT literally made this color that all these people, when you see a cartoon, you see the black hole in the wall and some dude jumps through the black hole?
Yeah.
Okay, they made a color that is literally like that. It shows.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that. Okay,
well, a dude did an experiment. I saw his video on Facebook. He painted a golf ball Vanta Black. It's a color you can buy. It's you can't tell the dimensions of if it's a ball. It looks flat. Your eyes can't distinct it. It's like, this looks flat, but it's actually round. And the dude goes and curves it. Usually you can tell the dude's hand's still behind there because shadows. This color is so black, like a black hole, that you can't see the shadow. So it looks flat. So when his hand goes behind it, you don't see the shadow. You just see a black hole.
Right.
So like his hand's missing. So some dude decided to spray his car Vanta Black, and they won't let him drive it because you cannot see that shit at night.
Oh my God. I have to find that.
He has headlights, everything that would distinct him, but his car looks like there's just floating balls of light in the air. So now it's like this whole prank with like UFOs and shit people are going to probably start doing.
Oh my God.
But imagine that though. Like if you took something and painted it Vanna Black and used that in a murder case. Like imagine painting like your murder weapon Vanna Black.
I can imagine the future, like, because killers evolve, obviously. Like if we learn anything from the 70s and 80s, where you could just kill anybody you wanted to, dump them on the side of the road. You can't find me, so I didn't kill her or him, whichever, because Eileen Wuornos was doing her thing in Florida. But the future of true crime is going to be a very, very futuristic type place. I mean, not let alone, let's say.
You ever seen that movie where they had a robot or they had a dude floating in a tub and he was predicting the future murders of shit, so they were arresting people before they could commit the crime?
That was a Minority Report.
Yeah, they had a Futurama episode on it too. Do you think that's going to be possible? Like you see crimes advancing
basically,
with technology.
What do you call those? They had those in the the Greek era where they had like virgins sitting in a room filled with like sage and fucking incense burning and shit like that. Like where they just go to them and be like, hey, what should we do next? And they're like, I don't know, go over to goddamn India and try and talk to somebody. What were they called?
Yeah, incense, calm and serene, more like death and ass cream. I'm telling you, man. They do never smell good. They smell burnt. They smell terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree with that. But
If you were going to murder, that's how I would do it. You talked about how you would murder somebody with an ice pick. I would do it with a fucking scented candle. Slowly releasing a toxin.
you could do it.
That'd be a good way.
You could do it.
But I feel like that'd be so much to do all that. Like kill somebody with strawberry fruit.
If you were a botanist, you would know what plants to burn.
Dude, I could just bottle up my fucking shit fume and toss it someone's way. It's like a mustard gas. I have so many people have had to wake me up at 2:00 in the morning, like that I live with, that are like, get the fuck out. Get out. I'm like, what? They're like, you farted. I can fucking smell it. I'm like, really? They're like, it's eggs, man. What are you eating? I'm like, I don't know, but I find on the street. You drop a burrito or something. I see it on the street. I'm picking that sucker up and walking.
They're it was a thing in the Matrix. Fuck. What was the girl in the Matrix where she was like the one that knew it all?
The Oracle?
Oracles.
That one slipped your head?
Yeah, it did.
Well, it's like in the 300 movie, they climbed those rocks. Back in the day, they would go and talk to oracles to get the justification or to get the vision of the war that's coming ahead of them, see if they would win the battle, see what would happen.
So God, like could you see society rewinding backwards to that?
Yeah, we are technically. If we're going to look at one person to predict these crimes or look at a supercomputer, isn't that the same kind of distinction of back in the day when we were asking oracles what the future would be?
Exactly.
I think it's the people's ability to want to predict an inevitable outcome. Like, you ever call messing with fate? Like, if you went back in time to save all the people that were on the Titanic, what alternate timeline would we be living? Would be living a life worse? And like, there was an episode of this show, Supernatural, where this person went back and saved all the people that were on the Titanic. And then fate found them at the regular timeline where they went, like where they jumped back in time and just started killing all these people that were not meant to be born, were not meant, that were just that their family ancestors, whatever, should have died on the Titanic. It's like, there is a, like, if JFK wasn't assassinated, what timeline will we be living in? What world will we be living in now? Do you believe that every action, everything that's happened leading up to this, that we're in this living moment, you think could be affected if one of those things were taken out?
I feel you on that, and I will contest that same thought with Auschwitz and the whole Holocaust. Had not those, I think 8 million people? I want to say
6 million.
6 million?
Yeah.
6 million people had not been murdered?
Probably 6 million is some change. Like, you can't just be like, he killed 6 million people. How do you know? I'm going to fucking round it up.
No, just like add another 2 million on top of that. No, like, I don't want to do that.
Can you round down when people die? Can you be like, I killed 6 million, well, we'll round it down to 6 million. But hold on, what about that one guy? Like, no, don't.
What about that one guy?
6 million and one does not make sense. It's like, but you can't round down with human life.
I thought it was 8. I'm sorry. Like, it might have been 6. Let's call it 7. All right. Let's call it 7. Let's say those 7 million people didn't die. How would society have changed?
Dude, I know for a fact he killed 6 million Jews.
I know 6, but I said 8.
All right. Well, Price is right. I got you. You're going to $1 me on life of the Jewish people. All right. We'll roll with it. All right.
I love
7.
Jewish people.
I'm Jewish.
Hey, I love you.
Love you too. I love it. I love it how we talked about Price is Right in the beginning. It somehow unfolds. But Drew Carey, serial killer. Price is Right.
There you go.
Oh, God. Hashtag Drew Carey, Price is Right. No, he's a great guy.
Like, no, seriously, like, I thought about that. Like, I watched for whatever reason, I found myself watching fucking Anne Frank Diaries, and they were talking about how many Jewish people had died in the concentration camps, and I was like, dude, like that is fucking tremendous. Like I could go a million years without knowing that many people died ever. Like if you wanted a true crime documentary, you could literally just make it about fucking the Holocaust and nothing else.
You get
Every single person ever. And
people talk about the Nazis being the worst experimenters and torturers of human life, basically, with what they did. There was actually a little cult kind of variation to it. Unit 731 is actually 10 times worse than the Nazis. It was in Japan. They actually had a secret mission that we'd all be living in Japan right now. They had a planned attack before the actions of Hiroshima, where we bombed and won World War II.
right.
They had a planned attack to hit the coast of San Diego with a submarine lined up with these missiles that were filled with 150 million ticks and fleas that were filled with the bubonic plague that would have literally hit. And you know how hard it is to kill a fucking flea? You look this shit up. It's called Operations Cherry Blossom at Night, led by Hiroishi Uno, who led Unit 731. Unit 731 is this freaking Japanese. They called them the Biomedical Tissue Services of Japan. They used to pick people up in black vans around all these distinctive places in Japan. Dude, I'll send you the article when we get done. Trust me.
Okay.
But I did a podcast on this. These people, in their articles, they talk about people as logs, and they called their torture camps logging camps. So people would be logs. So when it talks about 7,000 logs were cut, 100,000, they killed less people than Hitler maybe, but they did some really sick shit. They used to do vivisections. I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
It's where
Never heard of it.
you cut someone from the bottom part, the lower part, like where your body branches off into two legs, that right where
Like
your
the
groin
tank.
is. Yeah, and they cut up. And they would do that to people while they were alive, and they would sit there and with a stopwatch and time it and see how long it took for you to bleed out. They would.
This is why, like, I can't imagine. Like, I see. Okay, the Pilgrims. God damn. Okay, so society as a whole, I feel like, is not great because of the fact that we have so much history that revolves around people just trying shit. But like, you don't get the information without trying shit. But the shit that they tried was awful. It was awful.
I see. The problem is when I was doing research on Unit 731, it was crazy to read all these things. Like they would take. You ever seen the movie Snowpiercer?
Yes.
Okay, you know where there's. Yeah, there was the dude that plays the Human Torch is in it. Well, you know him as Captain America.
Right.
Yeah, well, to me, he's always Human Torch. You don't fucking switch. Sorry, it doesn't happen. Chris Evans, you take that shield and flame on. That's all I got to say. But they would take people's body parts. They would stick them outside of the freezing cold, and their arm would freeze. Unit 731 did an experiment like this. They would take you out into the middle of cold China. They would put different water buckets in front of you, different temperatures, freezing cold to super, super hot, and they would put your limbs in there. Some people would experience severe frostbite. I mean, to the point where your arm was completely like an icicle, and they would take a hammer and they would beat the shit out of it and break it off. Unit 731, they used to do experiments where they would chop your arm off while you were alive, no anesthetics, none of that. Sew it to the other side of your body and see how long you would bleed out. And if you lived, you had another arm on your other side.
Oh, so you're just like Goro over here, but
Yeah.
Not so much over there.
I read one of the most impactful articles of these people. If you really want to do a podcast of some true crime shit, these guys, like, they have specific names, everything, all the people let in there. And there was a dude that was involved, which made me look at the Nazis a little bit differently. Like, how many of those people that were Nazis actually wanted to kill the Jews, or were they just doing it because they were afraid that if they brought up anything that they would be next and so would their family? That was a very popular thing a lot of people don't think of. Seeing it from that aspect, a lot of people felt like
Well,
what they were.
it's a gang. It was a gang.
Yeah, you're in too deep.
Yeah, you're in too deep. Like, I was watching a documentary about a guy who was accused of being, a Nazi war criminal, and he was like, "I'm not." Like, you got the wrong guy or whatever. And there was hundreds of Jewish people that confessed, like, no, he was there, he ran the gas chamber, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how. Like, I wasn't there. Like, I can't say definitively that's the guy. Yeah, I know him too. Like, what the fuck? So, oh God, like,
Well, there's the case I read where the person was one of the people being tortured in the Unit 731's camp. And you got to think, there's Unit 731. You don't just fucking say, I'm going to call my Unit 731. No, there's other numbers to get you to 731. So they had other units as well. So this is just one of them, but one of the most sickest ones. A dude, I was reading his account, and he goes, there were giant jars on the camp in front of all of us prisoners, like these giant jars that were on the camp that had body parts floating in them, like test tube shit. Like, they would have chopped off hearts, chopped off heads, chopped off arms, just floating and scaring everybody that's working in this labor camp. And you want to talk about sick shit? The whole point of this story was, you think of a serial killer as being somebody, as being just this sick, twisted person. You think it's new. Like, people always want to talk about serial killers being new things, being all this thing that's happening because of technology. That might be a factor, but it's always fucking happened. There's always been sick fucking people.
And that's like a thing with, like, how I basically conducted this podcast. I was like, there's never going to be not someone that kills somebody, ever. Never. You will have killers, just like you'll have plumbers, just like you'll have roofers, just like you'll have electricians. They are necessary, regardless of how you feel about them. Necessary. Like, we might. I hope a plumber never has to come to my house, but guess what? He will. I hope a killer never has to come to my house, and if I can do anything to prevent it, he won't. But to somebody's house, he will.
Yeah, it's really hard because, I mean, you got to look at people with the best light sometimes, but
Or
it's
she
also,
will. I'm sorry.
but it's really hard because with people, there are a lot of people out there that have something about them that is dehumanizing when it comes to how easily they can be desensitized to taking a human life. Charles Manson, for instance, that just convinced people to kill other people.
That was acid. Acid's really easy to convince somebody to do anything.
Yeah, it's the whole aspect, though. Like, whatever got them to that point is how they turned out. So you can dehumanize them. You can be pissed off about who they are, but they're still people. They just had a different way of getting to how they got there. It's not bringing in the rational side to serial killers, but it's also saying that you have to look at everything from a perspective, which you do in your podcast, by the way. I want to give you here like a kind of a minute at the end to kind of promote your content, dude, because you have this podcast called Blood and Firewater, which is perfect because you talk about, with Blood, you got the true crime, you got Firewater. You guys bring in alcohol into the situation, and that makes any scenario a little bit easier. Drinking something to kind of watch this shit and first of all talk about it.
Yeah, I got the name the day my grandmother passed away. No one murdered her, by the way, but I literally bought the biggest bottle of a Svedka I could buy because there was no other way that I could wash that emotion down than with alcohol. Like, and that was at the time. Today, I don't drink nearly as much as I did then, but like my grandmother was a very pivotal. She was the matriarch of my family.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of people's are.
and I like it was an emotional dump. It was a very crucial point in my life. I had just had my daughter, my first and only kid, and she had only met her twice, I want to say. And like I didn't want anything traumatic to happen to her so early on in age, but me being so further on, I knew that I had to basically make her understand, like, hey, this is your blood. Like, I want you to understand that I wouldn't be here without this woman, and so on and so forth. So she's what brought you here, and what I'm going to basically make this podcast into is kind of sort of like it doesn't have everything to do about true crime. Like, don't think that like we won't cover true crime cases, but like we will cover true crime. We'll cover cults. We'll cover just the macabre. Like, I don't want to limit the podcast to just true crime. Like your podcast, you have a lot of different people on there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of different conversations with a lot of different people, and like that's something that I could super appreciate you about.
Oh yeah, man. See, the thing is, we got a voice. Everyone does. When I messaged you, I was like, he's got his podcast. Whether you got a couple episodes out or whether you got 100 episodes, that doesn't mean anything. What means something is that you have your life, you have this thing, you have thoughts on this world. We got to express them. I tell people, you don't send me your information. You don't send me all this stuff that you want to, oh, can I be on since I have 10 degrees? I don't give a shit. Okay. It's not to de-rationalize that. Congratulations. I'm glad you did that. But I hold over my college diploma. I hold my, the United Church of Bacon. It's my ordained minister's license under the Church of Bacon above my college diploma. Only on the aspect of we hold these pieces of paper that want to express the way we're supposed to be or act as people, the way we think that that's going to get us somewhere in the world. They don't mean shit. Having a conversation with you has been intriguing to me. Because you've taken me into the life and thoughts of yours, especially. We sat down for almost 2 hours having a conversation, man. So it's like you get to know somebody. That's all it takes. And I wanted to express like the importance of, obviously, I want to give you a plug here just to be able to, for your podcast. Because when someone comes onto my podcast or when someone tells me everything they have, I remember that shit. So when I have put up my conversation or my episode on my site, whatever, and someone listens to it, it's for you guys too. It helps the person understand you, helps become rational you, because we don't have a script in front of us. We're not reading anything. This is all going up just as raw as we did it, basically. I don't edit. I don't do shit. So mostly because I'm lazy. And when you're editing a 2-hour podcast, I can't crank out 6 or 7 of them without freaking doing editing the whole time. I'll be sitting there like, this motherfucker says 20 times in this thing and I gotta edit it out. No, I wouldn't do that. It's real shit. I want you to hear that, and I want people to know that, because that's only going to create people that listen to this episode that want to chase after you, man.
Well, I mean, again, the podcast is not limited to true crime. It's also the inside minds of me and my sister. We've both been forensics so far early on that we didn't understand what it was. Like, and with that being said, like, all right, to a point, I joined the forensic club in high school, and I thought it was like true crime related. Turns out it was a speech and debate club. Didn't know the difference Like, but it taught me that the forensics is like the breakdown of a conversation, pretty much, without blood and murder and all that. It's the breakdown of how people talk to each other. And what I learned from that was you gain a lot more through the power of speech than you would ever gain from anything else. Like the back and forth that we've had, I've appreciated very much. Like I've never met you in my life. I'm glad I met you.
Thanks, man.
And I hope that we continue to hang out and talk or do whatever whatever we're going to do. But taking this experience in hand, I appreciate more of people who, like you, want to just talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And be a part of their lives and just meet them.
Well,
You know what I mean?
you come across so many people in your life, and I think for me, I started meeting a bunch of people that give a lot of default answers. Oh, how's your day going? Oh, that's good. Okay, yeah, keep on going. It's like, don't walk away from me asking me how my day's going, and then when I go to answer you, you're still walking. I'm not going to answer you back. It's just take the time, whether it's an hour, whether it's to get to know somebody, or whether just get to have a conversation. Nobody has to agree. Nobody has to do any of this type of stuff. And, being able to talk to you has only bettered my life and better my knowledge on things that either I don't understand or things that I wanted just to get off my chest or something. It doesn't take that long to have that communication in your life anymore. Just like you used to sit down with a parent, sit down with a close friend, just have a conversation. Everything nowadays with people has to turn into an argument. It's not really fair. When you're always looking for just trying to be opinionated or get your point across. Sometimes you just have to sit, listen, and wait for your turn to speak.
Yeah. Like, I my wife has the biggest problem with that. But, when I talk to people, for instance, like when I go out and say, hey, do you listen to true crime or do you watch true crime documentaries? And I'm like, no, not really. My husband or my wife's really into it. I'm like, hey, well, let me talk to you for a second about why your wife or your husband may be into it, because I have a podcast that kind of gives you an inside look at people who don't look into it so much. Like I have way more insight than my sister may have because she watches the aesthetic of the podcast. Like you were saying, she wants to know about the murderer or how he did it. I want to know why. I want to know when. I want to know how. I want to know all these other details that don't get so much hype behind the person. Like they give these serial killers so much credit behind the fact that they did it, but no one cares about the victims.
Yeah, they only want to know about, because the serial killer, I guess, gets all the glory really in the aspect of it. Everyone only cares to see what happens to him or see how he did it or see what got him there. Nobody ever cares about the people that lost their lives.
Right. So like with my episodes, like I name my episodes after the victims, not the killer, because I'm not for giving him or her the glory of the episode or the story or whatever. Like I'm giving the credit to the family. Like I want the family to know that their thoughts, the memories, all that shit's still there. As long as you don't forget it, I won't forget it, because every case I've ever covered, I can't forget that shit.
Damn, that actually brings a different perspective and aspect into true crime podcasting. Because I feel like I've talked to a lot of people that do true crime podcasters, and that's the first time I think anybody's ever tried to look at the rational side from the victim's perspective as well, from the victim and the families, and someone that could put yourself in that person's shoes. How many times do you sit there watching a true crime show as an average person, and you try and be like, imagine if that was my grandma, imagine if that was this, and treat it as that, whether you're just looking at it like, okay, this guy killed that person like this. You don't ever care about
I've
that.
literally gotten sick from watching. I'm in the middle of, I guess, rewriting the Chris Watts case, and I've gotten the first initial rough draft, I got sick just writing about Chris Watts. Like I could not do it anymore, and I had to put it down. Like I was like, I'm done. I fucking hate this guy. Like if I ever ran into him in any given situation, I
Boxing gloves
probably would.
on.
I would not do great things.
You're pulling out that 9-iron.
So the, the 9-iron, like, but
Where all serial killers come from, they're all fucking golfers. You know it.
yeah, they are. Like a good bit of them are, to be honest with you.
Tiger Woods could have swung the. Oh, another
There
golf
it is,
pun.
right there.
Tiger Woods could have swung the other way, but he was like, "I'm gonna put this place in the empathy corner."
So like I definitely take the stance of from the victim and the victim's families. I don't like to give the killer a lot of credit, although he is a player he is an actor in these stories, and that's what people look for. And I hate that. So I'm trying to bring more attention to the fact that there are victims, not just one or two or 40 or 50, but these victims have families. Everybody is affected by these cases.
Relate
And
to the humanistic side.
it's not cool to sit there and say the Green River Killer who murdered, good God, 60, 70 people. He's cooler than the people he killed. There's no way. I'm sorry. I can't get down with that.
Shit, before I could even make that claim, I have to look at everybody's Instagram following, be like, all right, he's got 2,000 followers, but the guy he killed has 6,000. He's got 40 something likes on this photo, and this dude that he killed got 600 likes. So
You might be right. You might be right about that. I will give you the fact that he might have more street cred as far as the internet's concerned, but
this motherfucker's got a bigger following on the internet, social media.
I'm not a fan of being the most popular person. So
I care more about the people that actually care. You know what I mean? You know, people always talk about, like, I've gotten this on my podcast before I even message somebody, like, so what's your how many listeners do you have? I want to know before I come on. I'm like, why the fuck does that matter? Like,
right.
It's out there for whoever wants to pick it up. Doesn't mean you have to have a legit following. I don't like my YouTube analytics telling me what I got on my stuff. I don't like Spotify telling me either. It's cool to know if people are listening or not. But
God, I hate the numbers, Chase. I went down that rabbit hole right when we launched, and I was just chasing numbers every 10, 15 minutes, just like, all right, how many I got now? How many I got now? How many I got now? And then,
the conversations I've had have been only the most best experiences and knowledgeable things in my head that have only turned me out to the person. If you listen to my first podcast to where I'm at now, the change is amazing. That's all I ever look at. And, I'm pretty sure you'll see that too. I mean, just from like when you were a kid, you can see that to where you are now, the stuff that's happened in your life that have formed you to these moments. That's the same thing you got to take when you're watching or listening or doing a true crime podcast, or you're just involved in true crime in general. It's these routes that people take in their life to get them to where they're at today.
Oh yeah, dude. I had to, I told her, if it wasn't yesterday, it was 2 days ago. I was like, you know what? I literally left my phone. Like, I was like, look, I'm gonna just leave my phone in another room. And it's a baby step, but it's a step in the right direction as far as the analytics go, and being a part of that demographic where now you do have a podcast and now you do have a following, but you really shouldn't care about it. You really should just care about getting what you want to say out there, and not caring about what other people think. Like, there's going to be trolls. There's going to be people that don't like what you think. There's going to be people that totally agree with what you think, but just don't like the way you sound. And I mean, like my mom's from Spokane, Washington. My dad's from Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm from New Jersey, and now I live in South Carolina. I don't know how to sound, to be honest with you.
But you have a voice, though.
But I have a voice, and for people who want to hear it, here I am. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have a demographic.
You got a soothing voice to me.
I have an opinion, and if you want to hear it, you can. If you don't, just don't.
Well, tell people where they can find you, dude. Seriously. I know you're on Instagram. You got you got a Patreon and everything too, man. I want to make sure people can find your content because I do care about not only the conversation, but the people that are on here having stuff and they're trying to get something going.
Well, you can find me at Instagram and Facebook at Blood and Firewater. You can find me on Twitter at BFW Pod Squad, and our Patreon should be, I think, Blood and Firewater. It should be the same thing.
Now, if you don't donate to that just on the name alone, just know after this podcast, Rashad is a good dude.
I am a great dude.
Yeah.
I am a good dude.
And he'll kill you with an ice pick if you don't listen to his show. Yeah, don't cross him. I'll kill you with a Senate candle. Well, thanks so much, Rashad, for being on this episode of Out of the Blank. And stay tuned for our next episode.